And here we are on day 2 of Alicante with game 5 out of 6 in this slightly subpar army list competition. And this time, this is the 5th game, or if you include the practice game, the 6th game which I've used this army, the Mithraditic, and I'm sort of starting to get the hang of it. And the hang of it seems to be just keep it in a line and let the opponent decide which of the kind of mess of troops that they're going to fight, because whatever they choose to fight, even if they pick on the stuff they want, it's probably stood next to something they really, really don't want to fight. And on balance, the theory is hopefully that strategy will work out, make it your opponent's problem. And this game became a bit of a huge problem for my opponent right from the start, from deployment and initiative, because what you've got here is a table that is pretty bald here, but almost a third of it, that's one of the markers for the segments, or the not quarters, sixth, almost a third of it is entirely covered with fields and rough terrain. And this is a Avar army. It's all mounted. It's basically a Mongol type army. Elite heavy cavalry bow, light horse bow, a few medium cavalry. And what they want is a wide open space to run around the flanks, where my army is, as you can see, as wide as 2/3 of the table, but not really with anything left in the other bit. So I've got my two big commands here, the one with the Galatians and the Cataphracts sort of in the middle-ish. The other command here, so the Thracians and the archers can use those fields, and my tiny little set of cavalry are just extending this command over on this wing. And what the opponents have done, all their heavy cavalry are deployed over to this side, and this looks like they're just trying to refuse this flank. So I'm attacking, so I'm going first here, which hopefully means I'm just going to race across and just try and deny them space and push them off there. It's about as simple a tactic as is possible to do. And here it goes. This is my guys just sort of leaving the start line, making their initial moves forwards. In fact, it looks like that's a double move that we've managed to do all the way along the line. It's a nice tidy line, and the Avars are yet to react. So here is the list. As we said, this could be a Mongol one. Heavy cavalry bow, medium cavalry bow elite. That's a sort of reasonably standard way of looking at doing this, because then you don't spend double extra points on heavy cavalry. So they're supposed to be good because they're armor. The medium cavalry bow elite have got super shooting, extra bowmen, and there's a lot of archery firepower coming out of here. There's some decentish, well, there's more than enough command really here. Slightly more heavy cavalry bow, but it really does need the open spaces and time to shoot, which hopefully I will be able to deny them. So look, we've got some action. We've got the uncontrollable side chariot has just gone, sod it, let's just chase in. There's a little gap opens up between my spearman and my pikeman, and it just hurls itself in just to sort of slow up and disrupt the enemy, a bit of a bowling ball into them, make them think about it a bit. And it's gone into one of the best cavalry, one of the heavy cavalry here. Let's see what happens with it. On the other side, where there's very, very few enemy cavalry, that's the tiny command that's mostly light horse. I've sort of dragged, there's not much risk here, I've dragged the Thracians and the archer out. They are supported by that spearman. I've got a couple of cavalry in that command working with the side chariot. Bit of a gap between solid infantry, but there's only a couple of light horse here to deal with it. We try and pin these guys and put this lot under pressure with the bowmen and the light foot archery to really start digging around, and they're going to struggle to get past these. So really putting the pressure on at the moment as they crack forward, and boom, it's a lucky day for the side chariot. Unlike the previous game where they both died instantly, this one has done phenomenally well, done a couple of bits of damage to one of the key units in the enemy army, one of their best units, which is a bit of a disaster for the Avars. And the rest of the army is going to continue to press forward whilst they get their head around that initial bit of bad luck. So what's happened is here, all the Avars have done that drop back thing. They've had their rounds of shooting. They've left a few hit markers there and on my army, but not too many. But you can just see the amount of table is running out, and the point at which they're going to have to decide to stand and make a stand must be coming quickly. They've also not put vast amounts of pressure here. My army has drifted over to the left-hand side. I've got a few gaps, but I can cover them by these different groups sliding, and the cavalry are literally staring at the back of the table now. Some of them have actually decided to engage, have a go at the Romans, but that means they're having a go at the pikemen as well. And my light horse, the reason they're still there is that my light horse managed to sneak around the back of them and prevent them evading. So I've actually been able to pile into them with my heavy infantry and pikemen and try and start chewing them up, because in an army that's only 20 big, getting even a couple of them, suddenly that's 4 out of your 20, and it just adds up quite quickly. They're pretty tricky, and I can afford to even risk this guy. He's now at risk himself clearly, but I can afford to risk him to pin a couple and start to bring them to get to grips with them. Down here on this side, the Avars are trying to push past my small command of the elite heavy cavalryman. So as soon as he survived the archery, he's just as good as these heavy cavalry, probably better actually if that one's not elite. I've got an overlap here as well. I've done a bit of shooting. They've got some slightly injured bowmen there, so they probably got the way to numbers, but being a general, that's pretty good. That could help as well, so there's not quite as much space as you'd think down there. Over on the other side, the chariot's in, and that's picked off another heavy cavalryman. He stood to decide to do it. The rest have all dropped back. So there's a lot of space now for me to chase into and close down the army on this wing of the table. This struggle is struggling on. My general's taken an injury. They've brought out some reserves. People are just feeding bits and pieces in. But, you know, the closer these guys get to the back of the table, the less time, even if there was a breakthrough, that these guys would have to do anything meaningful. And, you know, there's extra bits and pieces here for me to throw in if need be. Here, he's beaten the side chariot. There was a gap in the line. He's raced through. He's obviously having a fancy at the baggage. He's brought up a couple of light horse to pin my cavalry, who would be the obvious guy to go back and get him. I think that may mean that this guy is tasked with doing that. And over on the other side, I'm pushing up. The Avars have come back for another round of shooting. Not a lot has quite happened yet. They are pushing some cavalry though now round the flank to threaten the spearmen. But even taking on the spearmen is not going to be super quick. And then there's a lot of troops here who can just keep pushing them off the table, even if I end up getting nibbled on that flank down. On the other side, the light horse have come back, clattered into the back of my trapping light horse, but we're still beating up these heavy cavalry bit by bit, pushing forward with the cataphracts. And again, the more I can sort of suck people into combat, that's out. You know, I've only got a couple of shooters, so sucking them into combat is the only way that I'm going to score pits in this one until we actually start pushing them off the back of the table. And here it is, looking at it from a slightly different angle. The fact that cavalry have been drawn in here, we may well have chopped one up here or shot one down. So my army's now able to start spreading out because there's nothing too dangerous to really get through the gaps or threaten any of them individually. It's just light horse. And I've sent some of the imitation legionaries back just to try and pin this guy, so he can't now do his baggage run. Unlucky me. And or not quite me, can't quite do it. And here you've still got my guys pushing forwards. I think the cavalry have decided to take a stand. They've got this guy ready to start creating overlaps. So this is the time to make a stand. They're not going to get much better than this. This is still inconclusive over here. My cataphracts are still slightly behind the line. Over on this side, this is still taking a long time. Armoured cavalry are tough to beat, especially when I've got injured infantry and mediocre pikemen facing them. Pushing the cataphracts forwards, trying to just engage them so that I can then feed more troops into the combat later on. Not big amounts of space over here. So looking at this from the top, this attempt to hold the line hasn't really worked. I think that might have been the earlier injured one. They've all gone down. I've taken a couple of extra hit markers here, and this thing is still ongoing. They're still fighting hammer and tongs down here. Nobody's got a breakthrough. This guy looks like the decisive element, but you know he's got to be decisive in a lot of places, and he's got to do it before any of these start collapsing or falling apart. I've still got the cataphracts to commit in there. Over on the other side, finally, these guys have both gone. My light horse have survived this. They've fought off the rear attackers. They've turned them around. They're suddenly now in a great position. The cataphracts are pinning these guys as well and have the possibility of charging them. Again, this guy could get around the back with a bit of luck. And we come back and we've pinned this guy as well, although I suspect he will be able to evade and race off to, yes, there you go. He can evade. He's turned, he's evaded, and he's evaded in the right direction. That's the second time this weekend I've made that mistake. Never mind, but that's the way it goes. And over here, flipping it, the area he's left, he's down here. This is now almost entirely denuded of troops. This guy is basically just trying to stay out of arc of my archers, and they're just trying to stop them doing the repeat thing again. But there's just nothing here really left. There wasn't much to start with, but there's absolutely nothing now to slow these down. These guys have broken off again, pushed back. They really are running out of table, but this frees this up, and there's still very few hits here. And this combat is still ongoing. They've launched the attack into the flank, but because of the injuries there, they've had to break off from the front. And My guy's not too fussed about that. These guys will still be able to rush forwards. I don't think they can do it. It's tricky, and it's really about how much table's left. And looking at this here, again, making another round of shooting. They've got a few hits. This is where to make a stand. And my light horse has got behind again to stop these two evading. Looks like these guys have decided to stick around as well, just to form a line, stop these lot just being easily run over. So they're fighting, particularly as these are injured. It's not going to get necessarily much better. If they have the fight here or here or here, fighting against injured troops is about as good as it's going to get for them. So what's going on here? You can see this group have just drifted across to join up into one big solid mass. He's now almost on his last legs, but he's still fighting away. These guys have got opportunities, but we're almost starting to have light horse getting close to that baggage, although I think it is fortified. It's a double height one, so it's fortified. Over here, my general is finally, in this epic struggle of arm wrestling, has won, secured a big victory here. And that is suddenly a massive problem for this cavalryman, but it really allows me to close down any opportunity of someone exploiting this flank, even if they are to win. And with that guy winning, that's the game. And here is the post-match press conference with myself and Aussie Simon discussing the important details of that game.
Hello and welcome to the latest Madaxeman.com Army List ADLG podcast, in which I'm joined by Rick